never simply born an empath, as if some divine spark had gifted you with a heightened sense of other people's feelings for no reason at all. You were shaped into one, molded by the shadows of your earliest environments, trained by survival rather than choice. Imagine for a moment the fragile consciousness of a child whose mind has not yet built the walls of individuality or discernment. That child lives in a world of immense impressions, where the parent's anger feels like thunder, where silence is as loud as a scream, and where love and rejection are as indistinguishable as day and night. This child learns without words to read every shift in tone, every movement of the body, every vibration in the room, because it is a matter of survival. And here is the unspoken truth. What you now call your gift of empathy began as a wound. I do not speak to you as an outsider looking at your life. I speak as one who has spent his own existence tracing the labyrinth of the human soul. The empathic sensitivity you carry is not a coincidence, it is an adaptation. Like the way the eyes of nocturnal creatures dilate in the dark, it is the unconscious way of saying, if I can feel the storm before it hits, I might survive its impact. And thus, long before you had language to explain what you were doing, you became a master of attunement, listening to what was not said, sensing the vibrations that were too subtle for the ordinary mind. This is how the empath is born, not in the serenity of love, but in the trembling need to know when danger is near. The world likes to romanticize empathy, calling it a divine gift, a rare and noble quality. But I will tell you the darker truth. Much of what you consider your strength today is rooted in a survival instinct that never had the chance to rest. What feels like deep compassion is often the echo of a child's vigilance. You learn to care for the feelings of others because you feared what would happen if you didn't. You learned to sense pain even before words, because you knew that if you could understand it, you might avoid it. This is not to diminish the beauty of your heart. Rather, it is to honor the courage of your journey. You have turned wounds into wisdom, but wisdom that was born from fear still carries a trace of its origin. And so I ask you, do you truly know the difference between your compassion and your fear? Do you know when your kindness is a genuine flow of your being, and when it is a shield, a strategy to avoid rejection or conflict? Many of you confuse the two because they have been intertwined for so long. You think that saying yes to everyone is love, but sometimes it is only fear wearing the mask of love. The shadow of the empath is this: to lose oneself entirely in the feelings of others, to become a mirror rather than a being with substance. If you are not careful, the gift that saved you in childhood will become the chain that binds you in adulthood. The unconscious mind, where all archetypes reside, is not passive, it is alive, breathing through your dreams, whispering through your instincts. If you are an empath, it is likely because your inner child, the archetype of innocence, still walks beside you, holding your hand with trembling fingers. This child is powerful, yet vulnerable. It learned early that love was conditional. That safety depended on reading the room like a sacred scripture. Perhaps you had to soothe an angry parent or anticipate the needs of someone who never spoke them. Perhaps you were told, directly or indirectly, that your own feelings did not matter as much as the feelings of those around you. And so you disappeared into others, learning to feel their emotions more vividly than your own. The dream world often reveals this truth before the waking mind is ready to see it. I have seen patients who dreamed of being shapeless, like water flowing into the vessels of other people's lives. In these dreams, they have no form of their own, no voice that is not an echo. These dreams are the psyche's way of crying out, who am I, beyond what I feel for others. This question is the key to your freedom. Empathy without boundaries is not empathy. It is self-erasure. It is the unconscious belief that to exist means to serve as a vessel for everyone else's needs. You may wonder why I speak of empathy as if it were both a blessing and a curse. It is because the psyche itself is paradoxical. Every gift carries its shadow. To feel deeply is to risk being drowned in what is not yours. To understand another's pain is to risk forgetting your own. But the archetype of the empath is not meant to remain a wounded child forever. The journey of individuation, the great task of life, demands that you take back the pieces of your soul that you have scattered across the emotional landscapes of others. Consider the symbol of the wounded healer, an ancient archetype that speaks directly to your condition. The healer is powerful precisely because they have known suffering. But the healer who never addresses their own wound becomes a prisoner of their calling, unable to distinguish their own voice from the cries of the world. This is the hidden danger for the empath. You may heal others while quietly bleeding yourself. You may love others so fiercely that you forget the love you owe to your own soul. And what happens then? Resentment grows in secret. Exhaustion becomes your constant companion. You begin to feel invisible. Yet you cannot stop giving because you fear what will happen if you do. I want you to imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of a mirror, but this mirror does not show your face. It shows your inner life, the feelings that belong to you and the ones you have absorbed from others. Can you tell which is which? Most empaths cannot, at least not at first. You may feel sadness that is not yours, anger that does not belong to your story, fear that echoes from someone else's trauma. Yet you carry it all as if it were your own, because your survival once depended on this absorption. This is the work of shadow integration, to look at what is yours and what is not, to claim your own truth while releasing what does not belong to you. In my studies of the unconscious, I have often observed that the empath archetype is closely tied to the anima or animus, the inner feminine or masculine image that guides our psychic development. For many, the empathic instinct arises when the anima or animus is wounded or suppressed. For example, a man who represses his anima may find himself overly tuned to the emotional needs of others, yet unable to express his own. A woman who carries a wounded animus may become so hyper-aware of the moods of those around her that she forgets her own inner authority. In both cases, the empathic ability is not purely natural. It is born from imbalance. Do not misunderstand me. Empathy in its highest form, is indeed a bridge to the divine. It allows you to see beyond the mask of the persona, to feel the archetypal currents flowing through another soul. But when empathy is forged in trauma, it is like a sword that has never been polished. It cuts both ways. It makes you sensitive, but it also makes you bleed. And so the task is not to discard this gift, but to refine it, to temper it with boundaries and self-awareness. Without this refinement, the empath becomes a martyr, crucified on the needs of the world. I ask you now to reflect on your own life. When did you first realize that you could feel what others were feeling? Was it a joyful discovery, or did it come with pain? Many of you will recall moments of watching your parents or caregivers trying to predict the next move, trying to understand the unspoken emotions that fill the air like smoke. Perhaps you learned to be quiet, to smile when you were hurting, to carry the burdens of others without complaint. This is not empathy, this is emotional survival. And yet, because you survived, you now have the power to transform this survival mechanism into a conscious choice. You can learn to feel deeply without losing yourself. The path of individuation requires this transformation. It asks you to meet your own shadow. The part of you that has been neglected in the name of pleasing others. This shadow may appear in dreams as a figure who is angry, neglected, or even violent. Do not fear this figure. It is only the part of you that longs to be seen, the part that says, tu deservecare. The empath often fears their own shadow because it feels selfish to claim their own needs. But selfishness and self-care are not the same. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. If you continue to give without receiving, you will collapse under the weight of your own gift. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the hidden twin of your soul, carrying all the truths you were not ready to face. For the empath, the shadow often contains anger, the anger you swallowed when you were too busy tending to others' wounds. It contains the voice that says, I have needs too, but which was silenced for fear of rejection or punishment. And it contains your forgotten power. For in learning to sense and heal others, you have neglected the fire that burns within you. To face your shadow is to meet the other side of empathy, the fierce, protective instinct that says, you are worthy of the same care you give so freely to others. It is not enough to simply be kind or be compassionate if your kindness is drenched in self-abandonment. The world will take everything you give and then ask for more, not because it is cruel, but because it is unconscious. Most people do not see the empath suffering because you have trained yourself to hide it so well. You smile while your heart bleeds. You offer understanding while silently collapsing under the weight of everyone's expectations. This is why so many empaths burn out, why they retreat into isolation, why they feel invisible. Even in a crowd, it is not that others do not care, it is that you have never shown them your true face. You have given them only the reflection they wanted to see. Do you know what it means to be whole? It is not about being endlessly available or endlessly soft. Wholeness requires the union of opposites, the gentle and the fierce, the giver and the boundary setter, the light and the dark, in the language of alchemy, the ancient art that mirrors the psyche. The empath must undergo a process of transformation, of burning away false identities until only the essence remains. The first stage is the nigredo, the blackening, where you confront the pain and confusion that shaped you. This is not easy. You will feel as though you are dissolving, as though your entire self is melting into the chaos you once feared. But out of this chaos emerges the seed of gold, the hidden self that has always been waiting for you. Let me share a vision that often arises in the dreams of those who are empaths. In the vision, there is a house filled with many rooms, but the dreamer is always cleaning, always tending to the rooms of others, while their own room is left in disarray, locked and neglected. This house is the psyche. Each room belongs to an aspect of your life. Relationships, it's work, family, spirituality, but your own room, your own inner sanctuary is forgotten. The dream is an invitation. Enter your own room, light a candle there. Stop living only through the eyes and emotions of others. For an empath, this is revolutionary, because you have been trained to believe that caring for yourself is selfish. But the deeper truth is this: you cannot bring true light to others while your own room is dark. The archetype of the mother often dominates the empath psyche, even if you are not a biological mother. This archetype is both sacred and dangerous. It teaches us to nurture, to love unconditionally, to protect life. But when distorted by trauma, the mother archetype becomes the martyr, endlessly giving without receiving, pouring from an empty cup. This is why so many empaths are drawn to broken people, to those who cannot or will not heal themselves. You believe on some level that if you can heal them, you will finally earn love or safety. But this belief is a ghost from your past, a voice that whispers, if I can fix them, maybe I will be worthy. This is not love, this is survival wearing the mask of love. True love, true empathy, does not erase the self. It honors both the self and the other. It knows when to step back, when to say no, when to let another person walk their own path. But this is difficult for the empath, because your nervous system is wired to intervene, to soothe, to rescue. It feels wrong to do nothing when someone is in pain. Yet sometimes the greatest act of love is to allow someone to face their own darkness, to trust that I have the strength to find their way. You are not here to be everyone's savior. You are here to become fully yourself, and in doing so, to illuminate the path for others, not by carrying them, but by walking your own path with integrity. You see, the empath's journey is not about becoming less sensitive. It is about becoming more rooted. Imagine a tree. If its roots are shallow, every wind will bend it. Every storm will threaten to break it. But if its roots go deep into the earth, it can sway without losing itself. Your empathy is like the branches of that tree reaching outward, touching the lives of many, But without roots, you are at the mercy of every breeze of emotion, every gust of someone else's pain. Deep roots mean boundaries, self-awareness, the courage to say, this is mine, and that is not. It is the art of feeling without absorbing, of loving without losing yourself. In the collective unconscious, the empath resonates with the archetype of the oracle, the one who can see and feel beyond the ordinary. But even the oracle must retreat to the temple, must cleanse herself after touching the sorrows of the world. The ancient priests and priestesses knew this. They practiced rituals of purification, of grounding, because they understood that to be open to the divine currents of emotion is to also be vulnerable to the shadows that travel with them. Where are your rituals? How do you cleanse your spirit after carrying the weight of others? Most empaths do not have these practices. And so they walk through life like sponges, saturated with the feelings of the collective, unable to tell where they end and others begin. Let me speak now of dreams, for the dream world is where the empath's truth often emerges. If you have dreamed of drowning, of being pulled under by waves of water, it is likely that your unconscious is showing you the danger of being too open, too porous. Water is the symbol of emotion, of the unconscious itself. To be submerged in water without breath is to be consumed by emotions that are not your own. But if you dream of walking on water or of navigating a calm river, this is a sign that you are learning to move through emotion without being overcome. Pay attention to these dreams. They are your psyche's map, guiding you toward balance. There is a point in every empath's life when they must choose continue living as the perpetual healer or step into their own individuation. Individuation is not about rejecting your sensitivity. It is about owning it fully, claiming it as a conscious choice rather than a compulsion. When you were a child, you had no choice but to feel everything. It was the only way to survive, but now you are no longer that child. You can choose to set down what is not yours. You can choose to feel your own life more vividly than the lives of others. You can choose to stop being defined by the pain you absorb. The question I ask you is this: who are you when you are not taking care of someone else? Many empaths do not know the answer. Your identity has been built on service, on attunement, on being the safe harbor for others' storms. But if all of that was stripped away, if you no longer had to anticipate anyone's needs, what would remain? This is the essence of shadow work for the empath. It is the terrifying yet liberating journey of meeting the self that has been buried under layers of duty and fear. When you begin this work, you may feel guilt. Guilt is the ghost of your conditioning, whispering that you are abandoning those who need you. But the truth is, you are not abandoning anyone. You are simply stepping into your own life for perhaps the first time, and from this place of authenticity, your empathy becomes cleaner, sharper, no longer entangled with fear. You will begin to see that you can love without rescuing, that you can care without losing yourself. You will realize that the greatest gift you can give to the world is not your exhaustion, but your wholeness. I once worked with a woman who could feel the emotions of others so strongly that she often collapsed with migraines. She believed this was her cross to bear, her sacred burden. But when we explored her childhood, we found that her sensitivity was born from growing up with a volatile parent. She had learned at the age of 4 to scan every subtle change in voice or gesture, because it meant the difference between safety and chaos. She carried that skill into adulthood, but now it was poisoning her. It was not until she learned to set boundaries, to recognize what belonged to her and what did not, that she began to heal. She did not lose her empathy. She refined it. And in that refinement, she found freedom. This is what I want for you. To see that you are not a victim of your gift, nor are you its prisoner. You are its master. If you choose to be. But mastery requires courage. The courage to look at your wounds, to face the fear that if you stop being everything for everyone, you will be left alone. This fear is an illusion, a relic of your past. The truth is, when you stop living for others, you will finally meet those who love you for who you are, not for what you give. To reclaim your power as an empath is to remember that you are not just a vessel for the emotions of others, you are a soul with its own fire, its own desires, its own mysteries. You have been taught, perhaps unconsciously, that your value lies in your ability to feel for others, to anticipate their needs, to carry their burdens. But I tell you this, your value is not in how much pain you can absorb, it is in the light of your own being. You were not meant to spend your life as a mirror reflecting the wounds of the world. You were meant to be the flame that illuminates your own path first, and then, by extension, lights the way for others. In Jungian psychology, the self, the ultimate archetype, is the totality of your psyche. The union of conscious and unconscious, the wholeness that lies beyond the persona and the shadow. For the empath, the journey toward the self is often blocked by a false belief that to be whole means to be selfless. But true wholeness is not selflessness. It is the integration of all aspects of your being, the giver and the receiver, the nurturer and the one who needs nurturing, the healer and the wounded one. To move toward the self, you must first turn inward and meet the parts of you that you have abandoned in service to others. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. This forest is your unconscious, the place where all your forgotten needs, feelings, and dreams have been buried. The empath is often afraid to enter this forest because it feels selfish to focus on the self. You have been conditioned to believe that the world will collapse if you stop tending to everyone else. But this is an illusion. The truth is, when you step into the forest of your own soul, you will find the roots of your empathy, and you will see that they do not grow from pure love alone. They grow from fear, from longing, from the desperate hope that if you give enough, you will finally be seen and loved. The first step in reclaiming your power is to see this truth without judgment. Do not condemn yourself for the ways you have survived. The child who learned to feel everything did so because they had no choice. That child was brave beyond the measure. But now you are no longer that child. And the patterns that once kept you safe may now be keeping you trapped. It is time to release the compulsion to rescue, to fix, to carry. It is time to let yourself simply be. One of the greatest challenges for the empath is to distinguish between compassion and enmeshment. Compassion says, I feel with you, but I remain myself. Enmeshment says, I feel you so deeply that I lose myself in your pain. The difference is subtle, but it is everything. When you are enmeshed, you are not truly helping anyone because you are operating from a place of fear and compulsion rather than grounded love. You may think you are offering healing, but you are actually perpetuating a cycle of dependence, both theirs and yours. There is a story I often tell about a dream one of my patients had. In the dream, she was standing on a shoreline, watching people drown in the ocean. Without thinking, she dove in, trying to save them all. But the more she tried, the more she was pulled under until she could no longer breathe. She woke up, gasping, terrified. This dream revealed the pattern of her life. She was constantly diving into the emotional waters of others, believing it was her duty to save them, even when it was killing her. When we explored the dream together, she realized that the true act of love was not to drown with them, but to stay on the shore, to extend a hand when they were ready to swim, but not to sacrifice herself in the process. You must learn to stay on your own shore. This does not mean you stop caring, it means you learn the art of discernment. You cannot heal everyone. You are not meant to. There is a profound humility in accepting this. When you stop trying to carry the world, you make space for others to step into their own power. You give them the dignity of their own struggle. And you give yourself the gift of your own life. The archetype of the hero often appears in the psyche of empaths, but it is a distorted heroism, one that is driven by the need to be needed. True heroism is not about rescuing others at your own expense. It is about living in alignment with your truth, even when it means saying no. It is about knowing when to step forward and when to step back. The empaths must transform from the rescuer to the sovereign, the one who holds their own energy with strength and clarity, who does not give it away recklessly, but offers it consciously, with intention. Consider how often you say yes when your heart longs to say no. Each of those moments is a betrayal of your own soul. And each time you betray yourself, your empathy becomes a little more heavy, a little more poisoned by resentment. This is why so many empaths feel secretly bitter, even though they would never admit it. They have given so much that they no longer know how to receive. They have said yes so often that they no longer remember what their own desires even are. This is not love. This is self-abandonment, disguised as virtue. To break this pattern, you must begin to listen to your own body, for the body never lies. When you feel tension in your chest, when your stomach knots at the thought of saying yes, that is your soul speaking. It is telling you that you are crossing your own boundaries. Learn to trust these signals. They are the language of the unconscious, the whispers of the self. Every time you honor these signals, you reclaim a piece of your own power. You begin to see that your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by the authenticity of your presence. There is another archetype that is vital for the empath to integrate the warrior. The warrior is not cruel, but they are strong. They know how to protect their energy, how to stand firm in their truth. Most empaths have banished the warrior because they fear conflict. They fear being perceived as harsh or unkind. But without the warrior, your empathy becomes a bleeding wound. The warrior teaches you to say no more, to draw a line not out of anger, but out of love for yourself and for the sacredness of your energy. In your dreams, the warrior may appear as a figure in armor or as a wild animal that stands its ground. Do not dismiss these dreams. They are calling you to reclaim a part of your soul that has been lost to people pleasing. When you integrate the warrior with the healer, you become whole. You can offer compassion without being consumed. You can stand in your light without dimming it for others. The empath heart is vast, but it must not become a dumping ground for everyone's pain. You are not the universe's garbage bin for unprocessed emotions. You are a temple, a sacred vessel, and like any temple, you must cleanse it, protect it, honor it. This means creating rituals of release, whether through meditation, journaling, breathwork, or simply spending time in nature. The psyche needs these practices to stay balanced. Without them, you will carry the psychic residue of everyone you encounter, and it will weigh you down until you forget who you are. Think of a river. A river flows because it is both open and contained. It does not spill endlessly into the land, nor does it dam itself completely. Your empathy must be like that river, flowing. But with banks, when you have no banks, you flood. When you have no flow, you dry up. The balance is found in conscious awareness, knowing when to feel, when to step back, when to offer your energy, and when to protect it. As you begin to reclaim your power, you may notice that some people in your life do not like it. They are used to your endless giving, to your lack of boundaries. When you start saying no, when you start putting yourself first, they may call you selfish or distant. Do not let this deter you. It is not your job to be endlessly available to everyone. It is your job to live your truth. And those who truly love you will respect your boundaries. Those who do not were only interested in what you could give them, not in who you are. This transformation is not a rejection of your empathy. It is its evolution. It is the shift from unconscious empathy driven by fear and survival to conscious empathy which arises from choice and strength. Conscious empathy is a powerful force. It does not drain you. It energizes you. It allows you to connect with others deeply without losing yourself. It is a kind of empathy that can heal, not because it sacrifices itself, but because it is rooted in wholeness. Individuation is the path of returning to yourself. And for the empath, this path is both tender and fierce. It requires you to gather every scattered piece of your being, every fragment you left behind in the hearts and minds of others, and call them back home. This is not a comfortable journey. You may feel as though you are betraying people you have always served, but the truth is you are only betraying the false narrative that says your life belongs to everyone but you. To individuate is to step out of that story and write your own. Consider the mask you have worn, the persona that has shielded you in the world. The persona of the empath is often soft, agreeable, endlessly understanding. It is the part of you that knows how to soothe, how to listen, how to be whatever someone needs you to be. But beneath this mask lies a deeper self, one that has its own desires, its own raw edges, its own truths that cannot always be pleasant. This deeper self is calling to you. It whispers in your dreams, in moments of exhaustion, in that quiet ache that says, I can't do this anymore. Listen to it. The persona was necessary once, but now it is time to let the deeper self lead. When you begin this process, you may feel a surge of anger or grief. This is natural. These emotions are the voices of the parts of you that have been silenced for too long. The empath often represses anger, believing it to be unspiritual or unkind. But anger, when acknowledged and understood, is a force of clarity. It tells you where your boundaries have been crossed, where you have betrayed yourself. It is the fire that burns away illusions. Do not fear it. Embrace it as a messenger. Let it show you where you need to say no, where you need to step back, where you need to reclaim your life. This reclamation is not just psychological, it is spiritual. In the mystical traditions, there is always a moment when the seeker must enter the underworld, must face the shadows and demons within. For the empath, the underworld is filled with the voices of everyone you have ever tried to save. They will call out to you, begging you to return, to keep being their caretaker, but you must walk through this underworld with courage, knowing that you are not abandoning them, you are freeing yourself, and in freeing yourself, you create the possibility of a deeper, more authentic connection with others. The archetype of the self, which is the center of the psyche, is like a mandala, an image of wholeness that radiates from within. When you align with the self, you no longer feel compelled to fix or absorb everything around you. You become a still point, a calm presence that influences others not by force, but by being fully who you are. This is the highest form of empathy, to be so rooted in your own essence that you can witness the pain of the world without drowning in it. There is a dream image that often appears when an empath begins to heal the image of a garden. At first, the garden may be overgrown, wild, neglected, because all your energy has gone into tending other people's gardens. But as you turn inward, you begin to clear the weeds, to plant seeds of your own choosing. You begin to water your own soul. And over time, this garden blooms with colors and fragrances that are uniquely yours. When you walk through this inner garden, you realize that true empathy is not about giving everything away. It is about sharing the fragrance of your own blooming without depleting yourself. This shift also changes the kind of people you attract. When you are living in unconscious empathy, you attract those who feed on your energy, who take without giving because your boundaries are porous. But when you step into conscious empathy, when you root yourself in your own soul, you begin to attract those who meet you as equals. You no longer draw in only the broken or the wounded. You begin to meet people who see your strength, who honor your boundaries, who give as much as they receive. This is the alchemy of healing. As you transform, your relationships transform as well. I want you to remember, this empathy is not about pain, it is about connection. It is about seeing the divine thread that runs through all beings, but you cannot see this thread clearly if you are tangled in the wounds of others. You must first untangle your own heart. This requires time, patience, and a willingness to be with yourself in silence. Many empaths fear silence because it forces them to feel their own neglected emotions. But silence is the crucible of transformation. In silence, you will hear the voice of your own soul, the voice that has been drowned out by the noise of everyone else's feelings. Dreams will guide you here, as they always do. Pay attention to the symbols that arise: water, animals, dark corridors, light breaking through clouds. Each of these images is a language of the unconscious, speaking directly to your journey. Perhaps you will dream of a wounded animal, and you will instinctively try to heal it. But ask yourself, does this animal represent someone else, or does it represent you? Often, the wounded figures in your dreams are mirrors of your own neglected self, calling for your care. As you move through this process of individuation, you will begin to notice that your empathy takes on a different quality. It is no longer frantic, no longer compulsive. It becomes quiet, steady, like a flame that does not flicker in the wind. You will find that you can sit with someone's pain without trying to fix it, that you can love them without losing yourself. This is the sign that you have stepped out of survival and into conscious choice. There is a profound liberation in realizing that you do not have to feel everything to be connected. In fact, when you constantly absorb the emotions of others, you are not truly seeing them. You are only seeing a reflection of your own fear of disconnection. True empathy does not overwhelm. It is spacious. It allows both you and the other person to exist fully without merging into one another's suffering. The mystical traditions speak of the heart as a sacred vessel, a chalice that holds the light of the soul. For the empath, this chalice has often been filled with the tears of others, leaving no room for their own essence. But now you are invited to pour out what does not belong to you, to cleanse this chalice, to fill it with your own light. This is not selfishness, this is sacred stewardship. Your soul is not here to be a sponge for the pain of the world. It is here to radiate the truth of who you are. And who are you? Beneath all the layers of survival and conditioning, you are a being of profound depth, of wisdom, that was carved not just by trauma, but by the alchemy of transformation. You are the bridge between worlds, the inner and the outer, the conscious and the unconscious, the personal and the collective. Your empathy is not a weakness, it is the doorway through which you can touch the archetypal patterns that shape humanity. But to walk through this doorway, you must first stand firmly on your own ground. Let us speak, finally, of choice. You were trained to be an empath by survival, but now you can choose to be one by consciousness. This is the turning point. When you choose empathy rather than being compelled by it, you reclaim your sovereignty. You no longer feel the need to say yes to everyone. You no longer feel the need to carry the weight of every emotion that passes through the room. You can feel deeply, but you can also choose when and how to engage. This is freedom. In this freedom, you will discover a joy that you may not have felt in years. It is the joy of simply being, of existing, without the constant tension of scanning the emotional weather. It is the joy of feeling your own life fully, your own laughter, your own dreams, your own desires, without them being overshadowed by the needs of others. And from this joy, your empathy becomes a gift again, not a burden. It becomes something you offer because you want to, not because you have to. You may still feel the echoes of your past, the old patterns tugging at you like ghosts. That is normal. Healing is not about erasing the past, it is about integrating it. You can honor the child who learned to survive by feeling everything, while also telling that child, we are safe now. We don't have to carry it all anymore. This inner dialogue is powerful. It is the reparenting of your own soul. The act of giving yourself the love and protection you always needed. As I conclude this reflection, I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. You are standing in a circle of light. Around you are the faces of everyone you have ever cared for. Everyone whose pain you have carried. You look at them and you say, I release you. I honor your journey, but I will not carry what is not mine. And as you speak these words, you feel the weight lifting from your shoulders. You feel your heart expanding, not because it is burdened, but because it is free. This is the moment when survival turns into choice, when compulsion transforms into conscious love. The world needs empaths, but it needs empaths who are whole. It needs those who can stand in their own light and reflect it outward, without losing themselves. This is your calling now, to become that kind of empath. Not the one who is trained and invisible, but the one who is alive, present, and rooted in truth. You have walked through the shadows of survival, and now you stand at the threshold of a new way of being. Step through, trust yourself. The self is waiting for you.